Alright, so in previous section, whatever we have implemented with SCSS and the header component, here is the output. We have the search text box, we have the sign in and sign up option, and there is some eStore logo as well. Now we are going to add a menu bar, a top menu bar. So we are going to create a separate component for the top menu bar. So in the components folder, I am creating one more folder called top menu, inside which I'm going to add a JavaScript file and a CSS file, that is the SCSS file. The JavaScript file I'm using index.js, and let's also add the SCSS. Now this CSS file will contain the design. Now let's go back to the index.js, and here I'm going to first of all import the React library, and let's also import the CSS file, the top menu.scss. So the CSS is also imported. Now we are going to create this top menu as a component. I'm going to use the arrow function, the ES6 syntax. So here we have the arrow function, and inside which it returns the JSX. So I'm using the parentheses, and inside that I have the container. This certainly you can put a division also, or you can just put brackets. Now let's also export the component. So I'll say export default top menu. Now let's just test whether this component is displayed or not. So I'm just giving a message, this is a top menu. Let's go back to the index.js of header, in which I'm going to import the menu. So here I'll say import top menu from the top menu folder. We already have the index.js, so that will be imported. Now inside this header, I'm going to add the top menu once the header section is over. So now you see that the output is displayed. The top menu is decided. The place is decided now. Now let's go back to the top menu. And now we are going to start the menu design. Normally when you design a menu with HTML5 syntax, generally you prefer to have header, then you also have various divisions, and you have the nav bar as well. Inside the nav bar, we generally put unordered list, and with li I'm going to add the anchor tag. So just doing this using few bootstrap classes. The row and call is the class to control the size of HTML elements using the bootstrap classes. So that's what I'm doing right now. Now let's have a nav bar, and inside this I will have the unordered list. Now I'm going to have an li. The first li will have the anchor tag, which will be the menu item. At a later stage, this menu will also be dynamic, but at the moment I'm fixing it in this file. Later on we'll also add the React router to make it single page application. Now you see that the menu is displayed. Let's also change the text of each menu item, and then we will start applying the CSS design. Let's say the first is home. The second, we give a category, a women category. Mind you that this will be dynamic at a later stage, but at the moment I'm fixing it. So we have this women, men. Let me also add kids and the bestseller category. Let's save this. Now at the bottom you see that the menu is displayed. Now instead of fixing this menu in li, what I can do, because the li will increase the size gradually, so what I can do is I can take all these menu items in an array. So let's do that. I'll say menu. This is going to be an array where I have all the menu items. So now we have the menu items in array. Now to loop through array and display the list items, right now we have multiple list items here that I'm going to remove, and we'll have just one list item. So I'm opening the curly bracket because want to write the JavaScript inside JSX. So I'll say menu.map. Now it takes a callback function, the map method. there will be two items passed to it, the value and the index. Let's take a list item and paste inside the map method. And here now, instead of home, I'm going to say the item. So each item of array will be displayed here. Because I'm using map, I'll have to make sure that each item has unique identity. So I'm using the key here. Let's save this. The output is same, but now the items are coming from the array instead of lot of LIs. Now we have just one LI and we are looping through the array. Now let's apply some CSS to this menu so that it appears properly. So let's also apply the class menu header to the header, and this class I'm going to use in top menu.css. Now there are few common CSS I am applying here. So as I add the CSS, I am saving it so that you see the refreshed menu design. Now let's also add some padding. So the text comes in the center of the menu. So I'm writing the related CSS for that. Let's add a class here called menu. The menu class will apply on the text. Because I'm in SCSS file and we are using the Sass format, I can use the UL like this inside the main class. You can nest the classes. Now you see that the menu is coming vertically in center. Let's also nest one more level, and I'm going to apply few settings for the LIs also. Under menu class, each LI will have this specific setting. Adding few CSS for the anchor tag. Let's also apply some hover effect. So at the moment you see that the hover has underline. Let's remove that. Text decoration will say none. So now there it is. Let's add few more better designing options so it looks even better. Now you see that the menu looks little different and better. Now we want to apply some animation when the mouse is over the menu item. So I'm going to use the transform. Let's add the transform here and adding the transition. Alright, so now let me just roll over the mouse and you see that there is some animation. Now this WebKit transform and transition, and there are few things which are commonly used across the application. So we generally try to put all this CSS into global CSS, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a separate folder. So I'm adding a style folder inside the src, and inside this let's have the Sass folder in which I'm going to add mixin.scss, which will contain all the mixins. So this mixin is going to contain a mixin, which is actually a kind of function, right? So here we have the name. Let's give a name transition, and there will be parameters passed from various CSS which we are going to spread here. So in SCSS we put the spread after the arguments. Now let's first of all assign the arguments to respective settings, and then I'm going to show you how to call this mixin. So I'm writing the various transition for all the browsers in this function. The WebKit, the Moz, that is various rendering, that is various CSS rendering engines we have. So for various CSS rendering engines we are specifying this mixin. O means Opera. So now this mixin will take care of all the rendering engine. Okay, so here we are going to import the mixin. I'll say at import. This import is CSS at rule, and here is the path. So now we are going to remove this transition, and instead I'll simply say at include the transition, which is the mixin we are referring right now. And here we are going to pass the parameters. So this is passed to the mixin, the arguments that is we have in mixins.scss. Still the output is same, but now there is a different approach to write the same code. You see that the time change does make the difference. Now I'll keep it 0.5 seconds only. So now you see that the effect is different. Now let's also add the CSS variables. We also make them global. Alright, so now this menu, that is the top menu component, is created, and we have given relatively a better CSS. Now the only thing remaining is CSS variables we need to make global. So I'm going to add a CSS file here, the global one. Let's name this as variables. The purpose of this file is that it's going to contain few commonly used CSS rules. So let's create variables here. We create variables with the $sign in Sass. So let's take header color for example. Now let's check what is the header color in the top menu. Here is the color. So I'm going to take this and assign to this variable. Put a hash sign. Now this means I have the color defined at one place. Now I'm going to import the global style here, variables.scss, and inside this I'm going to take the variable itself, which is the header color. So I'm going to say $header color. I'll take this and paste it here. You still see that the output is same. Let's change the color for the trial purpose, any color, and let's save this. Now you see that the color which is applied at a global level is applied wherever you want to. So this is the advantage of using SCSS. Now let's change the color back to the original one. So I'm going to just undo. There it is. This is how we are going to take the variables. We'll keep on adding variables as and when needed. So now the top menu component is ready. Next section we are going to design the sidebar. So let's move to the next section.